So yesterday on the podcast, I broke the news on the channel that Billy Joe Saunders has signed with Adam Booth, having evidently split with long-time trainer Jimmy Tibbs. Now, as long-time viewers of the channel will know, I'm a huge Billy Joe Saunders fan. He's a guy who I view... do you know what? He's actually a guy I view in a similar way to James DeGale as one of our most naturally talented fighters with some of the strongest capabilities that you will see in boxing. But at the same time, he's someone who I have concerns over, and I have questions as to whether they can be considered an elite fighter because of some of the weaknesses in their games. Now, regular viewers will know I have said that I consider James DeGale's tendency to fade in the middle of fights and to take rounds off and to lose concentration and to sit with his back to the ropes is a fatal flaw. Similarly, with Billy Joe Saunders, I think long-time Billy Joe Saunders fans have had to accept that Billy Joe fading in fights, Billy Joe being lackadaisical in the later rounds, Billy Joe allowing less talented opponents to steal rounds of him late on, and Billy Joe blowing up between fights and losing discipline. Perhaps that's become a fatal flaw for Billy Joe Saunders. We've always thought when Billy Joe gets to the top of the sport, he'll have the talent to put it together. He'll have the talent to to dominate. But like James DeGale, some of these negative attributes and negative tendencies in his game have remained, even as he's made it right to the top of the sport, and like James DeGale, to world title level. Now, Billy Joe, as we know, put in a fairly woeful performance last time out, and there's even been rumours that he was considering retirement following on from that fight, which is obviously not good news. So, first and foremost, I was delighted to see that he signed with Adam Booth, because it shows that he's taking boxing seriously. Adam Booth is a highly respected individual within British boxing, and it shows that he's going to be getting in shape and hopefully dedicating himself to the sport. So, on the face of it, this is good news. However, I wanted to do a video saying the pros and cons of this particular move. I'm going to start with the cons. One con for me is I'm a big believer of the following rule, and this is not just a boxing thing. This is a life thing for me. But I am a big believer of the phrase, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And let's be honest, Billy Joe Saunders' worst performance was his last performance, which was the only fight in his career where he was without Jimmy Tibbs in his corner. Now, prior to that, Billy Joe Saunders is a guy who was really performing rather well. I actually think it was a career best performance, his penultimate fight, when he fought Andy Lee. He's a guy who, for me, has improved, actually, as he's gone out through his career. So, that's a con for me. Is there a need to change the winning formula? And Billy Joe obviously believes there is a need. Whether the dispute with Jimmy Tibbs or the bad feeling or fallout with Jimmy Tibbs is related to money, or Billy Joe wanting to bring in strength and conditioning coaches, I've heard. I don't know what the thing is, but that's one potential con for me, is that Jimmy Tibbs was clearly someone who things were working with, and as I say, my personal perspective would typically be, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Secondly, if we look at Adam Booth, and this is one con for me, a lot of fighters have appeared to come and go from Adam Booth. I'm just going to say, off the top of my head, obviously, there's the highly publicised Chris Eubank Jr., starting with Adam Booth and then not working with Adam Booth. I also believe, I'm not 100% sure I've got this right, but I also believe that I can think of both David Price and also Nathan Cleverly having periods of trialling with Adam Booth and maybe not fully committing to him, maybe not signing with him and working with him properly. As we know, there's been other fighters, perhaps his two most high-profile fighters, David Haye and George Groves, who have obviously enjoyed substantial success working with Adam Booth, but have then departed Adam Booth. So, clearly there seems to be a pattern of fighters working with Adam Booth, enjoying working with Adam Booth, having some success with Adam Booth, and maybe departing. Potentially that's because of the financial element of the game. potentially that's because Adam Booth himself is a difficult character. You know, that's certainly what the Eubanks seem to have suggested, which is rich coming from them. But he always seems like an awkward character. You know, outside of the ring. When you see him in interviews, he's always a bit of an awkward character. And I wonder how he'll mess with Billy Joe from a personality perspective. You know, Billy Joe Saunders is a very unorthodox character. He's very to the point with what he says sometimes. He's not very media savvy. And Billy Joe is a character who a trainer could easily fall out with. You know, there's been plenty of occasions where his lifestyle outside of the ring has been questionable. There's been plenty of occasions where his weight has gone up and down. So is it potentially a fiery combination? You know, are they potentially two quite difficult characters been thrown into the melting pot? And I just think what Billy Joe needs in his career now is real stability. Real stability. So, you know, I wouldn't want to see him have a fight or two with Adam Booth and then be on the road again looking for a new trainer. And I just think if you look at Adam Booth's track record, there's a lot of fighters who've enjoyed some success with him and trained with him for a bit and then departed. So for me, that's another slight con. Finally, a third con. We'll go on to the pros in a second. It's not all bad, I promise. But a third con. If you look at the fighters who Adam Booth has really had success with, well, I guess there's three, isn't there? David Haye, Andy Lee, George Groves. In my opinion, all three of those are tremendous power punchers. David Haye and Andy Lee, certainly. I've always been of the opinion that George Groves has very underrated punching power. But those are three very, very explosive power punchers. Andy Lee genuinely has one-punch knockout power, as we've seen again and again and again throughout his career. David Haye genuinely has one-punch knockout power. George Groves, for me, has real underrated knockout power. But you know, for me, Booth has excelled with that kind of guy. You know, he's got them hitting hard, he's got them fighting explosively, he's got them looking for that one punch. You know, he perhaps was the architect of the haymaker style. He perhaps was the architect of that George Groves knockdown in round one against Carl Frost. You know, he perhaps was the architect of all of those stunning knockout victories that Andy Lee enjoyed over Korobov, John Jackson, etc. Now, Billy Joe Saunders doesn't have that in his repertoire. Billy Joe Saunders isn't completely feather-fisted. You know, people think that Billy Joe Saunders has literally no punching power. I think he's not that bad. I mean, we've seen him score a knockout, most notably against Andy Lee, which was a surprise to me. But we certainly can agree that Billy Joe Saunders is not a massive, explosive power puncher. He's got a lot of attributes. He's got all the amateur background, all the technique in the world, you know, real slickster. But is Adam Booth someone who's good at training slicksters? Has he got a track record of, you know, working with sort of defensive slickster fighters? Or is he someone who really excels with those explosive power punches? You know, is Adam Booth and the way he operates the good choice technically of trainer for Billy Joe Saunders? So, you know, what I'm getting at is when I heard this news, I was extremely excited as a Billy Joe fan, and I thought this was, you know, truly a great move. But now it's settled in over the course of the day or so, I've got one or two cons there. It's not all a bed of roses. Not all a bed of roses at all. So just to summarise then, the cons. I'm not sure you should stop working with Jimmy Tibbs when to date it's been a successful combination. I'm not sure if Adam Booth is the kind of trainer who more excels with explosive power punchers as opposed to defensive slicksters. And I'm also concerned that Billy Joe needs a lot of stability and that a lot of fighters seem to come and go from Adam Booth. Let's talk about the pros, because there definitely are pros there. Adam Booth is someone who gets his fighters in very good shape. He's someone who's highly regarded at the top of the sport. And for me, this move from Billy Joe Saunders represents a commitment to boxing. It represents a commitment to a new lifestyle. It represents a commitment to, really dedicating himself to boxing and taking his career seriously, which is what I like to see. I'm also unclear on how many fighters that the Tibbs is actually train. You know, I've already seen photos from Billy Joe Saunders on social media posting with, training with Adam Booth's stable. Andy Lee was in the photo. Mitchell Smith, Jez Smith, Charlie Edwards, Ryan Burnett. You know, Adam Booth is clearly doing some sort of link up with MGM at present. You know, a lot of the fighters are working with with Booth, and that sort of community aspect, all the guys in the gym together, working hard together. Potentially, that's what Billy Joe Saunders needs. You know, he's a guy who supposedly has maybe not always surrounded himself with the best people outside of the ring, and you know, maybe that hasn't led to the best lifestyle outside of the ring. So you know, that's a positive. That is a positive. I also think, you know, we talked about the fighters Adam Booth had success with in the past and how explosive they were, and maybe Billy Joe Saunders isn't that in terms of explosive power punching, but Adam Booth has also come up with good game plans for fighters who are known for having questionable stamina, and for fighters who are known for not fighting for 3 minutes of a round and fading late. You know, it's very, very easy to forget, but David Haye was known as a fighter who would potentially have a few big rounds and then fade. You know, he was the kind of fighter it was perceived to be that he could wear down. And we've seen Adam Booth design with Paddy Fitzpatrick a 12-round decision to win the world heavyweight title against Nikolai Valuev. So what I'm getting at is Booth is familiar with the concept of a fighter who maybe doesn't fight ferociously for 3 minutes of 12 rounds. You know, and he created a game plan for David Haye which was more low volume, more high quality low volume. Now, granted, Haye can rely on the power that maybe Billy Joe Saunders can't, but that's potentially some experience and some insight that Adam Booth can add to Billy Joe's game that will add real value, because you know, we constantly see Billy Joe win the early rounds of a fight and then fade dramatically. So if Adam Booth can work out game plans and work out methodologies to fight consistently for 12 rounds like he did in that Haye Valuev fight, then it's really impressive and could add real value as far as I'm concerned. George Groves is another fighter who's known for fading in fights, so Adam Booth's got plenty of experience of dealing with these kind of operators. I guess one final thing, and this is only it's more of a throwaway comment, but as UK fans know, the biggest fight out there for Billy Joe Saunders is Eubank Jr. It's the fight that we all want to see. It's the fight that's going to be mega money, crazy money. And it's a definite pro that Booth has experience of working with the Eubanks. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Booth has trained Eubank from the early days. I'm not saying Booth has gone through multiple training camps with the Eubanks, but he's certainly done quite a lot of work with the Eubanks. He has an insight into how they operate. He may have an insight into some of their future ambitions. He certainly may have some technical insights, having watched Eubank spar so much and you know, that sort of thing. So if that fight is to be made, and I believe it has to be made at some point due to the demand, perhaps Adam Booth is a good man to have in Billy Joe's corner, having had that experience of working with the Eubanks. So pros and cons. All in all, I still think it's good news, because it means Billy Joe's going to be in the gym, keeping busy, keeping active and dedicating himself. Would I have chosen Adam Booth as the trainer? Having reflected on it, potentially not. But there's huge pros, there's huge cons. Let me know your thoughts, people. Leave your comments in the section below. Is this the right move for Billy Joe? What do you make of my pros and cons? I'm interested to discuss. If you've enjoyed the video, take the time to hit the thumbs up button, please. I'd massively appreciate that. It supports the channel and spreads this to a wider audience. If you're new, you haven't done so before, please hit subscribe so you can check out my other stuff. Many thanks indeed for watching, and stay tuned.